Let me turn to the legislative side of the agenda. As I've said before, I believe that China today, led by Communist Party and propelled by Xi Jinping's hyper-nationalism, is unlike any challenge we have ever faced as a nation. China today is challenging the United States, destabilizing the international community across every dimension of power, political, diplomatic, economic, innovation, military, even cultural, and with an alternative and deeply disturbing model for global governance. So this is a challenge of unprecedented scope, scale, and urgency, and one that demands a policy and strategy that is genuinely competitive. So I am genuinely pleased that Senator Risch and I, with input from many members of the committee, have come together to create the Strategic Competition Act of 2021. The Strategic Competition Act is an unprecedented bipartisan effort to mobilize all United States strategic, economic, and diplomatic tools for an Indo-Pacific strategy that will allow us to truly confront the challenges China poses to our national and economic security. This moment demands a unified strategic response that we can rebuild American leadership, invest in our ability to outcompete China, and reground diplomacy in our core values. The bill will help us reinforce and rebuild alliances and partnerships, restore American leadership of international and regional organizations, respond to China's predatory economic practices, reinvest in replenishing the sources of our economic strength and innovation, and ground our approach to China in our values and highest aspirations as a nation. There should be little doubt that the right framework for thinking about our relationship with China is strategic competition. Not because that is what we want or what we have tried to create, but because of the choices that Beijing has and is making. And we must be clear-eyed and sober about Beijing's intentions and actions and calibrate our policy and strategy accordingly. I want to reiterate my thanks to Ranking Member Risch for his excellent contributions offered in a bipartisan spirit of cooperation. In fact, I'd like to thank all members and their staffs for their significant contributions to the bill. And I would be remiss if I did not extend my enormous appreciation to the ranking member's staff and my own for their tireless efforts on this bill, which included hundreds of hours of painstaking negotiations, as well as countless late nights. As I mentioned earlier, we'll also be taking up the China Censorship Act, and I commend Senators Merkley and Rubio for their work on this bill. It's an important contribution, and they have been waiting for quite some time to get it out of the committee.
The issues facing us today in foreign policy, and perhaps for the entire 21st century, is going to be China, China, and China. This is our answer. And this has been a long time coming. It's been a lot of hard work. And I want to thank all of our members of this committee who were consulted actively and who participated actively, and their staffs participated actively. This has got virtually everyone's fingerprints on it, for better or for worse. As a result of that, of course, we have a piece of legislation that has things in it that everybody will love and things in it that everybody aren't so red hot about, but that's the way you get legislation through. I've said from the beginning this proposal needs to be strong, actionable, and truly bipartisan, and it really does. The challenge that we're facing from China deserves no less than what we're undertaking here. I think this package that we prepared today for markup actually meets all of those criteria. This bill, I can't overstate the significance of the bill. It has the potential to be an important step toward ensuring the U.S. is postured to compete with China for decades to come. Indeed, if we are successful here, that will be the outcome. Only history will judge that, but this really needs to be done. One of the priorities that I had, and I want to compliment Senator Menendez for working with me on this, because this is a difficult situation, but it definitely needed to be addressed, and it's going to be controversial as it gets out in the public. I had the good fortune, Vicki and I had the good fortune of traveling in China in 1983, and at that time China was very much a third world country, and as I looked around, it had nothing that we had, and I couldn't imagine things being differently. Well, fast forward these decades, and of course things have changed dramatically. Now, how did that happen? Well, China has stolen every single good idea we have and taken it back to their people to make life better for them, except they left behind the freedoms that we have, the respect for human rights that we have, and certainly our form of democracy that we have. Their autocratic form of government is very different than ours, and as a result of that, they can move things much more quickly, and as a result of that, they've gotten to where they are by stealing our ideas. Now, one of the ways they've done that is through our university system. There are 300,000 Chinese students studying in America today. 300,000. They're not here studying ancient Greek philosophy. They're not studying home economics. They're studying in all the areas that we, for decades, have built the foundations that we have for America. Now, there's nothing wrong with us sharing our good fortune with the world. Indeed, we want everyone to have the quality of life that Americans have. But unfortunately, the Chinese have infused a tremendous amount of influence into the universities. So one of the ways that we've come up with in this bill to counter that is that we are going to require that these very substantial contributions of $1 million or more be reviewed by CFIUS, just as the other kinds of expenditures, to determine whether or not these things are in the best interest of the United States. We don't allow our politicians to take money from China. Why don't we? Because we don't want them influenced with the kind of things that China's peddling. There's no reason why these important institutions that are debating and that are producing the future leaders of this country should have that kind of influence, if indeed it is put there for malign purposes. So as a result of that, we've come up with this provision so that CFIUS has a look at it. Now, let's not be naive. We're going to get pushback from the colleges and universities. Everybody in this room has dealt with college presidents before, and it's their job to generate as much money as they can for the colleges and universities. But it is not right to be taking money from the Chinese Communist Party. Indeed, if money is fungible, and it is, certainly some of the money that the Chinese Communist Party amasses as a result of slave labor from the Uyghurs. And if you trace that money, where does it go? It goes into their general pot and then into whatever they spend it on. So you can make a very legitimate argument that that money is going into our colleges and universities, which should not be done. We hope the colleges and universities will look at this, buy onto our arguments that this needs to be substantially more tamped down and regulated than what it is. And if they have constructive ways of dealing with this, we certainly have no problem with dealing with that. We saw an example right here in this committee when Linda Greenfield testified. I supported her, and one of the reasons I supported her was she admitted that she had made that speech that was highly favorable towards China and did it as a result of a $1,500 contribution from a Confucius Institute that employed her to speak at that. So if you can buy that for $1,500, imagine what you can buy with millions that go into these colleges and universities. So with that, let me just conclude on that note that this bill really has the potential for drawing 75, 80 or more votes on the floor.